Welcome into the Trevor Staub Show, episode number 33. Today we've got a great guest. We have Brian Earhart. Brian is a former professional touring player and currently one of the lead voices on the Disc Golf Network broadcast. So we're going to talk to Brian all about the things he did in his playing career and what's going on in the broadcasting world. Let's hop right into it. All right, we welcome on our guest for this week's show. Today we have former touring professional and current Disc Golf Network commentator and analyst, Brian Earhart. Thank you so much for joining the show, Brian.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Thanks for having me.
Of course. So before diving in too far, I like to start all of my shows kind of getting everybody's background with disc golf, just getting people familiar with, where you came into the sport. So talk about just, how you found disc golf way back and how you started getting into the sport in the first place.
Yeah, so my story is pretty organic. So to put it plainly, my favorite toy as a kid was the Frisbee. So, okay. My earliest memory of disc golf was when I was 10. We played it in PE class, and I just remember being fixated on the flying. I think it was like one of those aerobie squeegee discs just, they suck so bad. But I loved it, and I went home. We had a toy Frisbee in our little bin in the garage, and I was just throwing it by myself, experimenting, and then eventually 3 years later, I discovered that there was a course, Adler Park, and there was an actual sport of disc golf, and my dad took me. And once I discovered that there was like a whole array of discs to choose from, my brain just exploded, and here we are almost 20 years later, and I'm still here.
Wow. I hear a lot of those stories where like the infatuation of the Frisbee just in general hooks people onto this sport. Other sports, a lot of times they don't have such a fascinating object that creates such like an aura around the sport. Like people just love watching the Frisbee fly, and I've heard that so many times where it's just like I got into disc golf because I just loved the Frisbee and it just caught my attention, and I think that's such a unique thing about the sport. So obviously, once getting into disc golf, you had a long career as a professional, playing into the Pro Tour era among some very strong fields, but then decided to call it quits as a pro earlier than some would have expected. You're still relatively young in the terms of disc golf professionalism. So talk me through that journey, because I remember, first hearing that you were retiring, and I had known you as a pro, and you had the signature disc with Discraft being the Zone, so a lot of people knew your name. So talk me through that journey of like you're touring as a pro, you start leaning towards retirement, the opportunity with the network comes up. Like just talk me through how that all went.
Sure. So first off, I told people about this like throughout my career as a player, but I don't think I really let people into truly how cumbersome it was. But I was pretty much injured really badly right when I started touring. Like my third tournament in tour in 2018, I threw and my arm literally wouldn't lift up off my side, and I was finishing tournaments literally throwing backhand, like holding my arm up, like. Wow. And it was the third tournament. I saved up money for all these years, and I practiced and practiced and practiced. And the moment I hit the road, it was like, boom, my shoulder was shot. And then really, like, I had stretches on the tour where I was healthy. So then some like potential started showing, and that's how I got on the elite team. Was Bob saw what I was capable of, and then I got moved up, and it was fun. I enjoyed touring and playing. But the injuries were just so bad, and they never stopped. And I was always fighting through something. And over time, it just became like all consuming for me. It was just like I was always concerned about my shoulder. I was always concerned about my back. I was always concerned about my knee. It never seemed to get better. I maybe had like a 6-month stretch in 2019 where I felt fully healthy. Wow. And then my back, 2021, my back started getting me, and then that was a new injury. So that's what I was battling. So while I was trying to play through all this, people I started meeting started liking how I started talking about disc golf, because that's my favorite thing to do is talk about disc golf, clearly.
Yeah.
And I made all these friends. I made friends with Jeremy Coling, and I made friends with Yuli, and me and him connected quite a bit because of that. And I started getting some little opportunities to do commentary. Gatekeeper gave me my very first gig in 2018 towards the end of the year. And then I got a gig with Jomez in 2019 with Yuli. And I really loved that stuff. It was so fun. So then And I started realizing that I was getting pretty good at it, and I really enjoyed that side of the game. So in 2021, I had one more year in my head. I was like, you know what? I like really love teaching, and I really love commentating, and I love all that stuff. But my money comes from the other thing. It comes from so I have to choose. So I told myself, this offseason going into 2021, I am going to train as hard as I can. I'm going to practice as hard as I can, and I'm going to see if I can do everything and just see if I can do it. I'll play less tournaments, and I'll see if I can do it.
Yeah.
And then I went to Vegas, and I, fresh off of an off season, and I played great. I got 7th or something like that, whatever. And my body felt good, and the commentary was good. I was able to separate it. I started the podcast up again. But right when the tour started, like when you're really on the road, instantly I was like overwhelmed to death. And I was like, I can't. I have to choose. So about halfway through the season, the back injuries like happened, and I was like, okay, this sucks. This like really sucks. So then I started going into tournaments like I just didn't care anymore. I was like, man, like it's almost like the world's telling me just go this way. Like I don't know. I'm 31. I don't know if I want to keep battling this in hopes that I become Paul Macbeth. Like I'm 31. I'm not 21. Right. It's either you become Paul Macbeth and you make the big money, or you make the same amount of money for years and years and years, and you get older and older and older. So for me, the injuries played a big part of it, but really it was like, okay, I'm looking at the industry of disc golf. I'm looking at the business of disc golf. I think there's an opportunity to go big in the other direction, and not really anyone has done that. So I'm going to try it and see what happens. And once I made up my mind, I think a lot of people thought it was a weird move, and a lot of people were questioning, like, is he okay? Like, has he thought this through? But the moment I really committed to it, just like anything in life, people are like, oh yeah, like that makes sense, Yeah. So I made the decision towards the end of the year that I was going to quit, and I was going to just go into full force teaching, media, whatever. And the moment I made that announcement, I got a call from all of the, outlets and opportunities that I've been given in the past wanting me to do more work for them. The moment I made the announcement. And I knew it was going to happen. I knew it. And since then, man, I have literally, my life has changed completely. I am so happy. I feel like I finally found my stride, and I am in a place where I feel like I have full control over my life, my career, and the impact that I want to make in the world of disc golf. So I'm stoked. That's where I'm at, awesome. And that's kind of what happened to me.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think it took a lot of guts to make that decision. Playing disc golf is always the dream, wanting to be on tour. Yeah. And the injury situation is the worst. I mean, you see it in every sport. There's guys whose careers are just sabotaged by injury, essentially. Mm-hmm. There's just not a choice there. And I think that was a brave decision to try to just cast it out there. But I think you definitely made the right choice at the right time, getting in there when you did. So yeah, that was certainly the right move. But so before your broadcasting experience with the Pro Tour, rewinding a bit, you'd already established yourself, kind of like you mentioned, as a personality in disc golf through your podcast, The Flight Diaries. And that podcast is a favorite among disc golf fans and players alike. What initially drew you towards media and kind of wanting to create content commentary surrounding the sport?
You know what? That's a good question. I've actually had to think a lot about that. And I think at first it was like this really taboo thing for me, like sharing my voice, like making something where I'm front and center and people have to watch and listen to what I have to say. So at first it almost felt like I wanted to make it because I had the freedom to make it. And early on, it's like I felt like, personal branding in disc golf was a big deal. And I felt like if I told my story, or maybe gave a platform to other people to tell their stories, maybe something good would happen. And I know that in the beginning, I knew no one was going to care about what I had to say initially, but just like you and like your business and whatnot, you just do it because you want to do it, know, and eventually people will care. So for me, it was just, I had to keep telling myself, I want to do this, but it's not for other people. It's because I want to create this thing. So really, that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to make stuff. And I think a lot of people want to make stuff, but they're afraid to take that first step and dive into it. So when me and Yuli decided to make the podcast, our first couple episodes we were supposed to co-host, and then he went home to host to nurse his ACL. But we like sat around this little blue snowball and we shared it together in like, it was terrible. It was such poor quality, but Yeah, man, I don't know. I wanted to make stuff. I had the freedom to make stuff, and I got to do it.
Yeah, definitely. I think you're certainly right. The way to go with this kind of content situation is you have to just put out there what you're passionate about and just keep being consistent. And eventually, the audience that wants to stick around will continue to build, and that's really have to do it. So, obviously, you've now joined the Disc Golf Network team. You're doing some color commentary and then the on-course commentary. And some analysis in between. Was it difficult adjusting to those roles, or is that something that came naturally to you, at least in some essence, having the experience with the podcast?
Mm-hmm. So the on-course commentary, I feel like I'm finally finding my stride with it. It's a weird role, and I wanted to bring value to the role because I felt like it could be so much, but there wasn't a lot that I felt like was being done with it. So at first, it was like me just feeling my way through it. Like, what can I do? What can't I do? Is there a way that I can set up the commentators to give me what I want? Like, because I don't want it to just be me, like, with a magnifying glass on the OB lines. That's not what the job is for. The job is to, like, provide more context than that. So at first it sucked. I did not feel very good about it. I made a couple hilarious mistakes early on in the season, and I totally ate some crap for it from the internet. But that's part of it. That's part of the job. But yeah, I tried to stay positive and realize that I'm all in on this for the next 5-10 years. And I feel like just having a good attitude towards it, I feel like I'm finally getting okay at the on-course commentary stuff. Yeah. So
no, I completely agree. And I think you're spot on saying, that spot really has needed to evolve past the, hey, are they out of bounds? That kind of situation. Because, that's important. There are times where the cameras can't get to a shot, and that's important. But being able to say, hey, this is the wind they're dealing with. This is kind of like the context of the shot. This is what they're looking at, because the camera angles can't tell the whole story. So I think that you definitely have taken that to another level. And I know that you having that touring experience gives you the context of not only a lot of the courses, all of them really, so you can have that kind of context, but then also you kind of know the shots that people are going to be looking to throw, what you would be looking to throw, and that certainly helps. I did want to talk about, commentary, obviously, like you mentioned, it's heavily criticized on the internet. It's the spotlight job on the broadcast because, no matter what, it is very hard. Live commentary, it better than anybody. It is really hard. I like to ask, I had Terry Miller on at one point, and I kind of asked him this question too, but I like to know, what are some of the misconceptions that people have about the broadcast that viewers overlook when they're giving that negative feedback?
Yeah, so I think a lot of people, first off, before I answer this fully, I think that's just American sports culture. We love criticizing the quarterback. We love yelling at the coaches, the administration. That's part of the fun of it. So once we realize as commentators that we're just a part of that culture, people don't actually hate us. There's probably a much smaller percentage of people that actually hate us. But I think the biggest misconception is they forget that if I slip up, if I say something weird and I have a sentence where I really say something that doesn't make sense, a lot of times it's because when I'm wearing my headset, the entire production is yelling into my ear. Yeah. The producer's yelling in my ear. I hear sometimes some of the other producers in my ear. I hear stuff that doesn't involve me is getting yelled at me. So sometimes at the wrong time, I'm trying to call something, someone will say a word and then I'll say that word. So, stuff like that, there's a huge production that goes behind it. And also, I think another misconception, and someone on Reddit, I think, itemized it, the cost to put on one of these productions is astronomical. I didn't even realize how expensive it was. Someone who worked in college football, itemized all the stuff that they do for an online broadcast. So much money. What the Disc Golf Pro Tour is doing with the budget they have currently is very impressive, and it's come a long, long way from the days of Disc Golf Planet back in 2012. So that's my thing, is just context. If you're new to the game, look into the history, look into where we've come from. See how far we've come. You'll have such a greater admiration for the people here that maybe we're still around back when that crap was happening. in the cargo shorts era of disc golf.
Yeah. I mean, when I was getting into disc golf, the peak of commentary was McFly So High. You remember that? Very solid, very solid.
Yes.
And then when Spin TV came around, like that was groundbreaking. But the fact that we have a live broadcast, even what we have right now, is you're right. It's absolutely incredible. So one thing I wanted to ask too is, like you mentioned, the process of hearing the producers in your ear. What does it look like? So when you're on the on-course, you're on course, you're doing that kind of analyst position. You got your players on the tee going into a certain hole. What is your mindset like? What are you thinking, okay, as far as positioning for this hole, where do I want to be? What spot? Like, what is kind of like your strategy going into a hole?
Yeah.
Based on what you think, like, are you kind of telling the producers where you're going to be, or are they telling you where to be? Like, how does that all work?
Yeah. So it's a little bit of both. So what happens is I have currently, this is the setup, and it's pretty old school, but I have one phone that's plugged into the live view broadcast. My microphone is plugged into that phone. It's a lapel mic. Yeah. So when they throw it to me, I'll unmute, talk, and then mute again. Okay. I have another phone that's attached to my headset. Yeah. Where I'm listening to the broadcast on a Google Meet call. So it's quicker. It's like better latency. I think that's what it is. So that I have two phones that I'm holding, and then if it's raining, I have an umbrella underneath because you can't lock the live view phone. So we're like, it's hilarious. But essentially on the other phone, I have like Messenger pulled up, and if I see something weird, I'll text Terry and be like, throw it to me. Okay. So-and-so is limping, throw it to me. Or like, when AB at OTB Open like rolled his ankle, I threw it to them and was like, yo, throw it to me. He looks really bad right now. Okay. Or I'm also, when I'm posted up, I'm paying attention to stuff that I might have to ask in interviews in the future. So like, if so-and-so, like say Dickerson throws a weird disc on a hole, and I'm like, why would you throw that on this hole? That's the stuff that I have to internalize, and I'll maybe never say it on the broadcast. But if I get the right opportunity to ask the question, I look like a genius, and it gives the fans so much more to latch onto. So I'm paying attention to future stuff, but I'm also paying attention to where their drives go. But again, like you said, I've played all these holes, and I've played badly on most of these holes. So I've been to all the terrible scramble spots, and I know most of the time the percentages of scrambling out of these spots. So it's a lot of compartmentalizing, and it's a job that can go really far if you really are good at understanding what the potential is. So it sounds like some serious multitasking. I mean, I remember I was at USDGC last year, and I had to just I was doing UDisc live score and I was live tweeting for Brody, and just doing those two things plus holding an umbrella, and I thought I was gonna have a panic attack. So I can't imagine being called into a live stream as well. So you've kind of done. In your career, you've done that on-course commentary, and you've also done some color commentary up in the booth. Which would you say you prefer and would like to do more of going forward? So I've thought about this too, because I actually am probably going to have to make a bigger decision in the future. It sounds like they like the work that I'm doing. They probably want me to do some more work in the future, and I'm probably going to have to choose that. On one side, I love the on-course commentary because I love being with the fans. I love maneuvering between them and cracking a joke while I sneak through, and I love being with the people that make this all happen because they pay all of our bills. They pay your bills, they pay my bills. Those people are awesome, and I love being there and making their experience awesome. But I also love when my voice is heard a lot. I love doing the preparation and having my team, and I love doing that kind of stuff as well. If I had to choose, I would probably say booth, obviously, because then you're front and center and you're calling the shots. But man, there's just something about being there. You've followed Brody around, you've done the media stuff. It's so fun. Oh yeah, it's so fun being out there. So I love both, but booth would be probably the end game for me.
Yeah. Do you think booth would be even more incentivizing if they get the booth on site every time? So that way you even get to be at the events too?
Yeah, I mean, that would be sweet. I mean, if they could pull that off, that would be incredible. Again, if they pay the same, if both of these positions pay the same, I still want to be in the booth. But I don't want it either. I don't want to be exclusive in either right now, at least. I'm still young. I still like being up and running around, So that's where I'm at right now.
What would you say so far this season was like your best like on course moment where they called it to you, or you had like you were just like so happy with what you were able to provide to the commentary? Because I remember I've definitely heard a bunch this year where I was like, oh man, Brian caught a good one there.
Yeah, I think the one that I was proudest of is when I at Des Moines, Evan Smith had a great round, and I put him in the spotlight. Like, I heard his story. I went to him and I caught up with him at the driving range, and I walked with him to pick up his discs, and I was asking him about his life and where he was in life, and I found out all this really cool stuff from him. He was super stoked to be there, and I heard the story of him being a singing major. He's a singer, and this is not even like his main gig. And then I also heard that Macbeth was like, if you want to be a pro, you got to practice 8 hours a day, and he's like, fine, I'm going to practice as hard as I can because you told me that. And like, here he is on the lead card beating Paul, so when I was able to tell that story, I love when I can like profile players that don't get the spotlight as much. And I did that twice. I got Burridge too. I got to talk about his ultimate background and his parents. And then of course he like ends up in the playoff, and it was so epic.
Yeah, no, yeah, definitely. That's definitely a great thing to do, is be able to, especially when you have somebody like Burridge who ends up in the playoff, it's great to have reasons to root for that guy that you may not have known before, but like build that story to where you feel the pressure of that event even more. Because I think the broadcast at the end of the day, the purpose is let's create a story around this event. Let's give as many storylines as possible. So, within your job, obviously the position of, the on-course analyst and even the color commentary, that exists in professional golf and then other professional sports, on all over the place. Have you ever like taken inspiration or tips or research using other sports or other personalities that you've seen? Like David Faraday is like one of the all-time like on-course golf guys. Like, is there any times where you've been like, let me see what they do and try and take from them? Or have you kind of just made your own style and just kind of rolled with it?
Yeah, so mostly it's just me running with this. I still feel like the new guy on the scene, even though I've been doing commentary for like 3 years. I still feel like I'm learning something every week. There's one commentator. I really am not incredibly impressed by a lot of pro sports commentators. When you actually pay attention, like when you've done commentary and then you listen to professional sports commentators, you feel better about yourself. They hard. Trip up over their of course it is. But I forgot who it was, but there was a color commentator for Wimbledon this year. Okay. And he was a color commentator. I don't know if it was...
Might have been McEnroe.
Yeah, it might have been McEnroe, but he had a stretch during a certain match where I was like, whoa. Like he showed off like his prowess, like he showed off his knowledge of the game of tennis. It wasn't that like jerky, it wasn't like that douchey, but he said it in a confident way. He was talking about second serves, and he was talking about how this one player needs to get his miles per hour to 107 rather than 103, and he made an explanation and went into this really cool segment of like technicality where I was like, oof. I want to do that, but sometimes when you do that, you're long-winded, and you sound like, okay, my early on comments were Brian's a big know-it-all and he thinks, whatever. If you can do that and then deliver it in like a little package, that to me is like chef's kiss and like color commentary.
That's so true. It's almost like when you hear those, there are times where, I think guys like Troy Aikman in the NFL, and there's a number of guys who it just sounds like they're bragging essentially, and they just go on and on and on. When I was back in the league, blah, 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 blah. But I think it's the best ones are where you hear a comment, and then almost like 3 seconds later, you're like, that was really smart. Like,
yes.
And then you're like, oh, well, yeah, he knows that because he's been there. Like it kind of hits you afterwards, just how important and impactful the comment was. That's really cool that you're able to like take from other sports and really apply that. So the one thing I wanted to kind of get into, since you're a part of live disc golf, and live disc golf, since its inception has been a hot topic within disc golf, what is it like just being a part of the rise of that platform within disc golf and just seeing it improve and kind of keep moving forward? What's it been like?
Good question. It feels like I'm where I've always wanted to be. And it feels amazing because now that I'm kind of inside watching this, the tour gets so much garbage from people, and that's just the nature of how governing bodies are, in general. There are so many hardworking people week in and week out that just bust their butts for hours to make this happen. And I love it. I love being able to be a team player, show up, whatever team they give me, I'm trying to make them as good as they can. I'm trying to make myself as good as I can. I love that I can inject my flavor into whatever they're trying to do, and I only want to take it even farther and have even more responsibility, because I really believe in where they're going. As much as obviously they're still the new player in the game, and they've obviously rubbed some, they've had to get into some boxing matches to get where they are, but yeah, dude, I don't know. I am so happy where I'm at right now. I can't wait to just keep pushing.
That's awesome. So alongside that, as live disc golf gets bigger, I also like picking the brain of the guys who work either with post or with live. Where do you see the relationship between, we've seen, some unprecedented things happen, Joe Mez paying for I think it was a 2-year deal to get rights to footage. That's kind of a new thing happening as that shift has begun to where, back in the day, Joe Mez was being paid to go to places.
Yeah.
Then it was free. Now they're paying because the Pro Tour owns the rights. They have the players with them. Where do you see the relationship between live and post-produced disc golf as we move forward? 5 years in the future, 10 years, and so on.
Dude, good question, man. And before I go into this, my actual answer is I don't know. I really don't know, and I'm on the inside, and because on the outside, because I truly don't know what their relationships are. Like, you see it from the outside, and that's it. I see a conflict of interest theoretically, but like, some people love post-production, and the magic would go away if you take away the post-production, for a lot of people. And some people can't afford a monthly subscription, some people can't afford to watch that. But I don't know, man. I see something happening in the next few years where someone's going to have to make a very hard decision or have a very tough meeting with some very powerful people within this community. But yeah, man, it's actually something that I think about often, and I hope there's a space for both, because that's how you and I both got into disc golf.
Absolutely.
Nick Fly So High, no commentary, just straight disc golf.
Oh yeah,
it hooked me. So I don't know. I love live commentary. I love actually watching live disc golf. I prefer it at this point, but the hundreds of thousands of people that watch post-production would say otherwise. So I don't know.
I think it is big having not only, next day coverage, but just having that library of disc golf coverage almost as an archive on the internet. Because for me, when I got into disc golf, it wasn't just, let me watch the next event when it comes out on YouTube. It's, I'm going to watch events from as far back as I can go. I'm going to watch them multiple times. I mean, I'm sure there are rounds I've seen 10 times, certain European Opens and things like that. So I think that's big. I think the real question really is not will they both exist, but who will be creating them? Because at the end of the day, the Pro Tour is now they're in the throne. They have the rights. So I think the question will be, will all these, because right now disc golf is so unique right now with you've got the Pro Tour doing the live coverage. They're doing post-produce, but a much different product. It's really just the live broadcast replayed. And then you have Joe Mez, Central Coast, Gatekeeper Pro, or Gatekeepers, GK Pro, all of them getting like their individual cards and bidding for them. With so many different players in the game, you have to, and with the Pro Tour essentially holding the cards, you have to wonder, if they get the resources someday, will they start buying out those companies? Will they just get their own team and bring it in-house? Do you think that seems like a likely outcome eventually?
I mean, here's my thing. If they keep growing and they keep delivering on their improvements to the pro scene and the players keep showing up, I think those companies are going to have to make a choice. You're right about that. Unless another tour starts up, and LIV Tour in golf, if someone else brings a different product and it rivals it and they bring in post-production, that's a thing. But I think the owners of some of these post-production companies are going to probably have to make a decision. And who knows what's going to happen. But yeah, the tour is doing really well. They are doing well. Look at this prize money. Like, look at the prize money over the past couple of years. It's ridiculous.
It's changed a lot in the last decade.
That's
for sure.
Oh my God.
It's great because I mean I was just talking to Gannon earlier today. I had an interview with him, and I was looking at his profile, and he has one Silver Series win this year. A really good season otherwise, but he only has one Silver Series win, and he's cashed 43,000. That to me is like, I remember back in the day, if you took home 30,000 in a season, like what a season that was. And then you had just those anomaly seasons from Paul and Rick where they take home like 70,000, and you were like, oh my gosh, like that's crazy. But it is certainly been some serious growth in the Pro Tour. They've been doing really well, and they're taking people's feedback, and I think that is the key to what they're doing is they're taking feedback and they're implementing it. But one last thing I want to do, Brian, before I let you go, I like to do power rankings on the show. I like to kind of customize it. So for you have one of the best logos as far as player logos ever, I think. You're wearing it, so it's a perfect visual, but the Earhart logo is great. So I want to get your power rankings, top 3 disc golf player logos, because there's a lot of them out there.
Dang, man, there's so many. Okay. I'm going to have to say, wow. Okay. First and foremost, I'll take mine out of it. I'm very proud of mine because I didn't want my initials used because I didn't mean anything when I first started playing, So I was like, my name has no meaning. So if this looks cool to someone that doesn't play or know me, that's what I want. Yeah, that was my idea. I actually, for name logos, I'm going to have to give it to Yuli. Like, his logo has scaled for a very long time. Yeah, and it looks very clean. That's
he started it too. He kind of started that blocky letter trend that everybody's kind of used now, and he did it well.
Yeah. Oh man, because every player is starting to get they have to do the logo. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Let me hear from you. Do you have some in mind?
So, one of my new favorites, Anthony Burrell. I'm a pretty big AB fanboy at this point, but his new one has like the snake attached to it, kind of the Arizona situation. So I really like his. Ezra's is solid. Drew Gibson's is very good. His new one with the crown on it, very good logo. I believe Haley King has a pretty solid logo.
Yeah, I don't even remember what her actual logo is anymore. She's had a few.
Yeah. But, yeah, a lot of them, I really do like it when some players go away from the initial, but I also am a sucker for them, too.
It'll point. Work. It works. Like, if the artist is smart and, can disguise it a little bit. It actually took me my entire life to realize that the White Sox logos just said socks.
Yeah, it's so true. Another one I do really like is Gannon Burr with the iceberg.
Is there a sheet where I can see all of the player logos?
There needs to be one at this point. Because I'm trying to think through almost all the top players. Some players have the persona more than a logo. Heimberg has the pizza situation. Chris Dickerson has the robot chicken stamps that he's done. So a lot of them are more than just a logo at this point, I guess.
I would say of the ones that I've seen, I like Yuli's. I like that Colton just decided to do a wolf. He was screw it, I'm just going to do a wolf. Love that. And then if I had to choose an FPO logo, I actually really like, as much as it's a initial logo, Sarah Hokum's looks like an H, but it's got the little S thing going. I respect that. I like that.
Hers is solid. Okay, good list. Yeah, I think that the initial logo, it can be great.
I'll have to look at it. I'll have to look at some more because I think it's been a while since I've seen the updated list.
Yeah, I need to make a player logo tier list or something and tweet it out. That would be a good one.
Yes, that would be good internet points.
Yes, for sure. All right, Brian. Well, hey, it was great talking to you. I think I love being able to conversate with people that are kind of on the media and commentary side of things. I think it's such a unique perspective, and I just want to say that you really are adding a lot of value to the broadcast. You've really been a bright spot in that new role and adding to everything and creating the story. So keep up the good work.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate that, and good luck with everything that you have going on as well.
Appreciate it. All right, and thanks once again to Brian for coming on the show. It was really good getting that perspective on what's going on behind the scenes with the broadcast, kind of getting a little more context for what goes on there. But anyways, we're going to be back here next Thursday with another great guest. We'll see you then.